Hello guys, welcome back. So in this video here, we're going to create an expose drop-down menu. As you can see here, we can click this button here and then it's going to bring up the options which you can easily use them. And we can click here to set up inside this label here. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, now we can navigate here to this drop-down and create here a new file. So we are going to create here a coding class of file, select file here. And this one we are going to call this components. And inside here now we can create a new composable, and this composable here we can call it main screen. Okay, now after we create here our main screen, what we have to do now is to create our composable. So what we are going to create here, we're going to create another composable, and this one we're going to call it exposed drop down menu. So basically here we are going to use a outline text field to act as our layout here in order to display our drop-down menu. So as you can see here, we have several states which we have to use them. So in order to do this, we can create another class. Okay, now the purpose of this class here is to decouple the state from the composables to this class here, so we can easily track and manage our state inside this class. So for example, here now we can create a variable, and this one is going to represent the state of the drop-down menu. So if it's going to be enabled or disabled. So here we can use a mutable state as usual. Yeah, and here basically we can pass in false, for example. And now you can try to import here the values. And after that, here now we can create another variable. And this one is going to represent the string. And here basically we're going to have an empty string. And here we're going to have a mutable state of size. So here basically what we want to have is the size which is going to occupy the date of the canvas. So the canvas must reach the size of the outline text field. So what we want to use this size here in order to make the outline text field equal to this drop-down menu, so that we can use this size to differentiate or to make them to be together. Now, after that, here now also we want to define the icon. And this one is going to be of type int because we are going to return a resource ID. And we want this to recompose every time when it's going to be changing. So we want to be, when this one is going to be enabled, we want to change the icon to be looking up or to be looking down. So for that case here, we're using this at composable so that you can reinitialize and use another asset. For that case here now, we can use this get. And we can use an if statement here, so we can check if this one is going to be enabled. Okay, so here we have all of our values. Now we can try to state the events which are going to retrigger the recomposition or change the values. This. And here we can change the unselected index. So when the selected index has changed, here we want to pass in int, and we want to choose the selected. Okay, now here we can add another variable. And this one is going to contain the items which are going to be shown inside the drop-down menu. And here we can use a list. So basically here we have a list and we are going to map it to this string here. So after that we can come here. So if you have, for example, a database, so here we are having, for example, arising from the room database, or you are getting from the network call and you want to get a specific value. So you're going to use this selected index in order to get the item. Okay, now what has remained here is creating a way which can remember the function. So we can create here a new composable, and we can call this remember expose the menu state holder, and we can use a normal remember function here, and we can call our expose this drop down menu state holder, and we can create here our object, and this one is going to be remembered inside recomposition. So this is the way. So if you have here, for example, you want to pass in dependency, so you can just pass it inside here and remember inside this by using the calculations here, and you can pass them inside the expose drop down menu state holder. Now we can try to use this inside our components. Now let's jump inside the components and finish up. Okay, now let's create here the state, and this state is going to be inside this main screen so that we can reuse it. For example, if we have view models or other things which we want to reuse inside the main screen. So here, for example, we can just call this state holder, and we can use the remember expose the state holder. And for that case here, so this one is going to take up a state holder, and it's going to be of type expose drop down state holder. Now for this case here, now we can use the state holder, and here we are not going to pass anything because we don't want the text field to react to the keyboard changes. And what we want to pass in here, for example, label. So inside here now we can pass in a text. And here basically we can just pass in label. And other thing which we want here to have the trailing icon. So if you press here Ctrl Q, you can see the optional trailing icon to be displayed at the end of the text field container. Now for here now we can pass in, for example, the icon. And here we want to pass in a painter resource. Well, and what we have to do, we can use the state here, and we can pass in the icons, and we want this to be now. Another thing which we want here, we want this icon to be clickable, and we want to trigger up the state so that we can change the drop down menu. So we can use the state holder, and we can also use the state holder in order to trigger this. Okay, so we are going just to change here the states between different ways. Now, what we want also is to have the drop-down menu, and for that case here, we want to surround this inside a box. You can press Ctrl-Alt-J here, and you can just surround this with a widget. So here, basically, we are going to surround this with a box. Now, what we want to do here now, we want to perform, and also we want all of these to be surrounded inside the column. So we are doing this because the drop-down menu is going to be inside a pop-up window, which is not going to be displayed inside the layout. So it has its own window. So we are doing this inside the box here. Let me show you here what I mean. Now we can create here the drop-down menu. And here the expanded, we can pass in the state. Okay, now we can use here the state holder, and we can change the enabled and can pass in here false so that it just dismiss the output. Now here we can use the items. So and here we're going to have the drop-down menu item. And so here we can react to the on-click. Okay, so now we can use the state holder, and we can change the selected index level. And we can pass in here the index which has been selected. Now, for example, here we can pass in a text. So you can have any type of UI which you want here, because this one is going to be a raw scope. So you can just use here and create anything which you want. So for example, here we are just going to provide the text, and we are going to be using this text which has been provided is at this list. Now, for that case here, I think we are done creating here our composable. What we can do, we can just call here our expose drop-down menu, and we can pass in here the stakeholder. Okay, now we want to make here our drop-down to be equal size to this outline text field. So because this one is going to wrap the content, so what we can do here, we can add another function, another parameter, which is called the modifier, and we can pass in here the global and global layout position listener. And what we can do here now, we can use the state and can change the size. And what we can do here now, we can use the coordinates. So this one is going to be the layout coordinate, and basically we can convert this to a size. So here we're getting an int size, and we are going to convert this to a size which a modifier can easily use. Now for that case here, now we can come inside this drop down menu, and we can pass in here a modifier. We're going to use here a local density so that we can easily, so we're using this local density so that we can easily convert between the float to something which can easily be used by the modifier. So now, if you press here Ctrl Q, you can see this is going to be used to transform between density independent pixel and pixel units. So now this one is going to be easily converted. So we are going to use this current. Now, for that case, also we want, when this item has been selected, we also want to close the pop-up. So what we can do here, we can use the stakeholder, and we can pass in here first so that we can easily just change back. Now we can come here to our main activity, and as I set content here, we can call the main screen. Now I think we are done. We can try to run our application and see the output. Okay, now the app is launched here, and we have here a label. And now we can try, for example, to click this button here. And as you can see here, now it's bringing up the option, and the size is going to be the size of this text field here. And it also just comes inside here because we have used the column, the box, and we have specified this drop-down menu inside there. Now, if you press here, now we can also reinitialize this value here. And if we come here, we can not use the text field because we have not used the lambda function, which is used to reinitialize the values. So you can try to use another thing. So for example, if you don't want to use a text field, you can just create a custom implementation of this outline text field box, and you can just pass in these icons here. So for now, let's leave it here. See you in the next video.